Welcome to the Private Practice with Soul podcast. My name is Dr. Brooklyn Storm, and I help private practice owners align their business back with their soul's calling, with their big vision and with their soul's purpose. Unlike other private practice coaches, I've traveled the world in search of spiritual resources, spiritual tools, education and information so that you can have the transformation that your soul desires and needs so that you can up-level your business. How much fun is this? I love it so much. Guys, if you're not already a member of the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group, please check out the show notes. I would love for you to be there. In the meantime, thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Storm. So pleased to have you here. Thank you for pushing play on another episode to all the loyal listeners. And of course, welcome to all of the newbies that are listening. I hope you love this podcast as much as I love creating it for you. So I'm just going to dive right in today. It might be a bit of a shorter episode for you, but super duper fun because you know what? Back from Daylesford, as you know, and fully reconnected with my spiritual self, and so keen to show you how this actually can be applied to your private practice. And what has been the impetus for our catch up today is that there's a lot of discussion in the groups at the moment around, I'm feeling exhausted and, I'm working hard and I'm not yet seeing results and all of this sort of stuff. But also I think too, sometimes my own, sense of, well, I want to try and help everybody. And I make this podcast and I make all these free resources and I try and be available in my groups to support people, but there are always people coming in that don't take up, they don't listen to the podcast, or they don't download the free resource, or they don't watch the free training that I do, but they still jump in the groups and are like, help, I'm stuck and I've been doing all of the things and nothing's working. And you know what? I just think if all of those things are there and you're choosing not to use them, you want the quick answer. If you want to jump in a group and ask, hey, do you know what? I am not committed enough to my business to watch a 10-minute video or to download and apply that free resource. I can absolutely tell you with 100% certainty that you're going to struggle in your practice, because without attending, giving your attention, putting your focus onto what's there and the solutions, you are only going to see obstacles. And we've gone into this before, so I won't belabor the point, but you will continue to see more of what you're giving your attention to. And I think when you ask people questions, it's always helpful to get different perspectives. I'm in a mastermind, I ask questions all the time, but at the end of the day, I consume the content as well, and I have a go at things, and then I will jump into groups and say, hey, I've had a go at this. What do you think? So really important if you want to get ahead in your private practice, that you take advantage of all of the good stuff that's being provided free of charge to you, if cost is the issue. But the other thing that I sometimes hear, well, actually not sometimes, but a lot of the time I hear that, it's such a big effort and I'm trying so hard and I'm not seeing the results and things like that. So I thought today we would have a quick discussion about what's called the law of least effort. I know, right? Do you love it? I love this stuff so much. And the reason that I want to do this is to show you that running a private practice gets to be easy. I tell this to my coaching clients all the time. It really does get to be easy. And do you know what? It is such a beautiful moment when you help somebody with something and they say, oh, is that it? Like, yep, that's it. And they realize in that moment, oh my goodness, I've been making this so much more difficult or complicated than it needed to be. And so, yeah, that's why we're going to have this conversation today around the law of least effort. I know, I love it so much. Okay. And you are going to love this too, because those of you who are open to this stuff, and I assume most of you are, because it's called Private Practice with Soul, right? You're going to love it so much because it's going to help you view the way that you show up in your practice a little bit differently and how you handle things in your business a little bit differently. And I'll give you some examples, some practical, private practice day-to-day examples from my business to illustrate some of these points as we go along. But yes, it gets to be easy, it gets to be light, and it gets to be fun because there is this law of least effort. And you know what? It's not just a universal law or a spiritual law or anything like that. We also see it in other sciences, like, for example, Vedic science. I think they don't call it the law of least effort. I think they refer to it as economy of effort, something similar to that. So I'm sure those of you who are into Vedic principles will be able to correct me on that. So please feel free to hit me up with an email. Okay, so what is it? Well, basically, it's this idea that nature, as you may know, or definitely appreciate, nature is built on sacred geometry, right? We all know this. We learn it in science in high school. We learn it when we go to university, and then we learn it when we do our own sort of self-directed study, whether that's esoteric or whether it's spiritual or whatever it is. But we understand that there's geometry in absolutely everything, and geometry is found on energy, right? That's science. We know this. And so we know that by law, by how physics works, by how natural science works, it is effortless for things to happen. Like, it's effortless for a bird to fly, it flies. It's effortless for a fish to swim, it's just going to swim. It's effortless for the river to flow, it's just going to flow. It's not using effort, it's just doing its thing. It's not effort, it doesn't take effort for the soil to compost itself. It just does it naturally and organically. It doesn't take effort for our bodies to replenish themselves. I don't know what the rules are, not the rules, but I don't know how it happens or how many times a year, but isn't it like we shed our whole skin once a year or twice a year or something, or we replace every organ in our body apart from our bones like once a year or something? All of this happens without any effort from us, right? It just happens. It's nature, it's science. It just happens. The grass isn't saying, oh, geez, I've got to push up another 2 millimeters today. Oh, can't be bothered. How am I going to do that? And, oh, I wish I didn't have to. And look at the rain. And, oh, look at the sun. And, I hope no one stands on me today. It doesn't work like that. Everything's just happening very naturally, right? It happens with ease, and it's just effortless, okay? And the thing that we know when it comes to us, as, we're connected like mind, body, spirit, for example, very basically, think about it like that. When we are in alignment with our, well, you can say higher self, you could say God, you could say source energy, whatever it is. But when you're in alignment with that, your intuition, your gut, when you're in total alignment, you're in a flow state. And when you're in that flow state, everything feels effortless, right? That's because everything is lining up energetically. There's no pushing, there's no controlling, there's no forcing, there's no requiring, insisting, demanding. You are just in flow. And I think we've all experienced a flow state before. The more that you can consciously and intentionally create a flow state, the more you get done in your private practice. And we've got other episodes on flow state. And if you want me to do another one, I can absolutely do that for you. Just let me know. But, I can recall when I was in a flow state over Christmas, and some of you may remember this, but I wrote 52 emails. I created them all in Canva. I made these beautiful templates up. I came up with these 52 topics. My intention was to give high value to you, to my audience through my emails every single week. And I wanted it to be a short email that wasn't going to take forever to read. And I wanted it to include action steps that could be done, that morning or that afternoon when people read the email. And I wanted to, make people excited to open them and everything. And I was in this flow state and I came up with, like 60 topics. I created a template in Canva. I wrote out all of the 52 emails, and I think they're all like 2 pages long or something like that. That's 2 pages in Canva, but 1 page in the email because you import them as pictures. But anyway, and so then I connected my Canva with MailChimp and hit publish, and boom, and then I just set them up. I set them up to go out one every week for 52 weeks. And they go out every Monday, and they're amazing. And people write back to me and they say, oh my gosh, this was so helpful. Thank you. I can't wait for next week's email. And I don't even remember what I've put. Like we're in the start of April. I couldn't tell you what's in next Monday's email, but what I can tell you is when I sat down and I came up with all those email ideas for my content, and I designed the email and I wrote them all out, and I published every one individually to Canva, and then I from Canva to MailChimp, and then I set them up as this workflow. The whole thing took me an afternoon. It took me an afternoon, and it was just so easy to do. But if you asked me this morning, hey, can you come up with 52 ideas and write 52 emails with lots of action steps and set them up in your workflow so you never have to worry about them for the rest of the year? Do you know what? Just the thought of that would make me go, oh, really? But anyway, you get my point. When we're in a flow state, we are more productive and more efficient. And that's why it's important for private practice. And I'm going to teach you some action steps at the end of this podcast to help you with that as well. Again, like just coming back to Vedic principles and Vedic science, they talk about economy of effort in terms of being able to do less and receive more. Doing less and seeing more benefits, doing less and being more productive, doing less and accomplishing more. And again, it's this achievement of being, productive through alignment. Okay. And the thing to remember is, I know for many of us, our default is when things aren't working out in our private practice, maybe we're trying to find more referrals, or get more bookings, or get more traffic over to our website. When that's not happening, for many of us, our default is to do more. Oh, well, I better do more. I'm not getting any inquiries from Facebook and Instagram, so I'm going to jump in a group and ask, where else can I go to find clients? And I'm going to make more work for myself. Rather than improving the platforms I'm already on, I'm just going to go off on a tangent over there and add something else to my to-do list, and I'm going to put a lot of effort into that. You know what I mean? But the reality is, when we're in total alignment, there isn't a beginning and an end. There's not a start and an end, right? It's all non-linear. So it looks like, to me, that feminine flow, where you don't come in with a plan and say, hey, I'm going to do this today. When you're in alignment, you get inspired to do something. It might not be working on your referrals. You might get inspired to create your emails or record a podcast or something like that. So it's non-linear. It's guided by what feels right in the moment, and it's guided by what would feel the easiest, most joyful thing for you to do. Okay. The energy of flow is one that's really nourishing, really nurturing, joyful, fun. And you know what? Sometimes when you're in your flow, depending on what you're doing, you can experience almost a state of, calm or bliss. Maybe even both, okay? And the way that we expand that flow state once we're in it is we expand that out through generating thoughts around love, through generating thoughts around appreciation, through generating thoughts around kindness, because those thoughts will lead to feelings, right? And those feelings create energy. And that energy of those 3 things, like gratitude and kindness and appreciation, will raise your vibration even higher and can sustain a flow state for you, right? Make the work even more enjoyable, make you even more efficient, make you even more productive. And yes, even if you have ADD like I do, you can still experience a flow state, right? It's not a problem. You can absolutely do it. But you have to remember that when you're wanting to cultivate that flow state, it means that you're disconnected from ego, right? So you're not even thinking about yourself. You are thinking about your clients, for example. You're thinking about, what do my clients really need to hear from me right now? How can I help my clients? How do they need me to show up for them today? Where are they struggling? Do I have something in my toolbox that I can give them that's going to solve a challenge or a problem for them? Like, how can I provide something for them that's really going to take something off their plate today? So it's not about you, you're not saying, oh, I'm worried if I do a Facebook Live, everybody's going to hate me and judge me and troll me and stuff like that. You're not in that. You are not in your head, you are in your heart. And that's the difference. When you want to create and embody the energy of the law of least effort, and you want to actually see if you can do this, you want to see if you can do less and receive more, it will require you to release ego and operate from your heart space. Okay, that's a skill. I know it takes time. Okay, the other thing too to understand is that there's this belief, and I'm sure many of you have heard this before and maybe subscribe to it, but there's a belief that our body is the vehicle for our energy. Our body, and again, we know this, don't we, from science and stuff like that, but our body is really good at generating energy. For example, I have started Noom lately. Noom, N for nut, OOM for Mary. I started Noom lately, and it's an app, and that app was written by psychologists and nutritionists and dietitians, and it includes like this one-to-one coaching every day, plus you track your food, and you get, there's gamification included, so like you get gold coins for doing all these certain tasks, which I love because I'm super competitive. And what else was I going to say about Noom? Oh, and it requires you to move, but it does it incrementally. So, it's trying to, at the moment, get me to 10,000 steps. It starts you on 2,000. And if you can get that 2,000 steps on that day, you don't have to, but if you do, then it will add 300 to the next day. So the next day, your goal is to get 2,300 steps. And if you do that, it will add another 300 for the next day, and so on until you hit the 10,000. And so it's by, what I've noticed is that when I first realized, oh my gosh, I've got to do 2,000 steps, in my head, I was like, how am I going to do that? And where am I going to find the time? And I'm so busy, and this is going to be hard. And, I can't remember the last time I did 2,000 steps in one go. And you know what? When I first did the 2,000 steps, I live in Mount Eliza, and it's quite a hilly area. And I thought to myself, I don't want to walk down my court, because my court, or I live in a grove, but it's really a court. And anyway, it's got a really steep hill. And I thought, I just can't do that. So I got in my car and I drove about 2 blocks away, where I thought it would be easier for me to walk these 2,000 steps. And do you know what? It did take effort for me to get going. However, that was about a week ago now, I think. And yeah, now I'm up to 3,900 steps I've got to do today. But the thing is that every day I'm doing these steps, it's getting easier. My body is finding energy for me. My body is creating energy for me to expend. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. But your body also stores energy, right? We know that. So it generates energy, it stores energy, and of course it uses energy, it expends energy, like when I'm going for my walk, okay? Or like when I'm working in my business. But having that awareness of like how our body does all of these things with energy means that when you understand that everything is energy, including your referrals, including your inquiries, including the turnover that's coming into your practice, all of those things that are related to business are energy too. You suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I can absolutely create more referrals. I can receive more inquiries. I can create and receive more turnover now that I understand how energy works, right? And I can do this by doing less. And this is the law of least effort, okay? So when you learn how to free up the energy in your body, like, the whole mind-body connection, right? You know how if you're super stressed, it has this effect on your energy, or if you're feeling depressed, it has an effect on your energy, or if you're feeling anxious and scared, it affects your energy. Well, understanding that connection means that you can then also understand how to free up your energy. That's what I was alluding to before when I was saying, like, when we're in our heads, we're not in that flow state and we are pushing, we are exerting energy, we are, persuading, convincing, trying, efforting. We're doing all of those things when we're operating from ego. But when we operate from heart, all that energy is freed up, right? And that's how you can do more things, operating from your heart space, okay? And there are 3 steps. Now, you might want to get your pen if you don't have one already. If not, maybe screenshot where the podcast is up to now and come back to it a bit later. But there are 3 steps that you can implement today that can help prepare you and ready you to start taking your foot off the accelerator so that you can slow yourself down. You can actually use less effort in your private practice and start to receive more of what you're wanting and desiring to call in. Okay. And those 3 steps are, first of all, acceptance of the current situation. And by that, very simply, I want you to believe and trust that this moment that you're experiencing right now is as it should be. Okay? Accepting that this experience, this moment that you are in right now is exactly as it should be. Even if it's not something that you like or feel comfortable with, accept, okay, this is happening and this is how it should be. The next step is to move you into that by me level of consciousness where we're taking responsibility for things, okay? And when we take responsibility for things, it puts us back in control because it allows us to come up with creative solutions to problems or creative solutions to situations and things like that, okay? We accept that moment. But we also accept in that moment when we take responsibility, this other aspect, and that is this moment is happening and there's a hidden treasure in it for you, okay? And this hidden treasure is happening for your evolution. So this situation you're in right now, even though it's uncomfortable, even though you don't like it, even though you want something different, accept that it's happening and it's happening the right way that it needs to for you right now. Understand that it's happening for you, not to you. That as a result, as a consequence of this situation at the moment, something good is going to come. You are going to improve something, whether it's see something a different way, whether it's shift a belief, whether it's update something, create something new. But it's happening for you to become more in alignment with who you are and what you're trying to do in your private practice. And step 3 is to become less defensive about things. And by that, I mean, sometimes we have these knee-jerk reactions to situations happening, and I will give you an example in a minute from my practice. Sometimes we have these events that happen and we think, ouch, that really hurts, and why? And that's not okay, and that's not fair, and, why did they do that? And all of this sort of stuff. And we can want to, reply back or respond from that space of being defensive, and when we do that, all we're doing is we're keeping that energy from being able to flow. We're keeping that energy in our ego state, right? Which means it's requiring more effort, more attention, more awareness, all of those sorts of things. When we can release that initial reaction or that initial response of defensiveness, and we can just release that need to try and convince someone of something, try and prove something to someone, try and persuade someone, pushing, using effort, all of those sorts of things. When we can do that, what ends up happening when we release the need to do those things is we integrate that experience. And when we can integrate that experience, what happens is we get out of ego state very naturally and organically without any effort at all. We drop back into our heart, and in our heart there's only love, and we settle down. We return, the energy's gone from buzzing and being rushing around our body and our system and everything. It comes back down to our heart space where it is relaxed again, where it's calm again. Okay, so they're the 3 steps: accepting that everything is happening as it should be happening for you in this moment. Okay, even though maybe you can't see why or you can't appreciate why just yet. Step 2, look at your role in it, take responsibility for it, find a solution or a way out, and understand that what's happened has happened for you, for your personal, spiritual, energetic, whatever you want to call it, evolution. Okay, it's for you to up level. And then the last one is let go of the need to push, convince, persuade, use effort. Let go of that. Allow yourself to integrate the lesson. It's by integrating the lesson that you transmute the energy of, I told you this was a spiritual episode. It's when you are able then to transmute the energy and take it from something that's quite stressful and anxiety inducing to something that's very calming and expansive. We take it from being restrictive to expansive. So they're the 3 steps. And I can give you an example. And I'm sure many of you are in business have experienced a situation where you've had a client who maybe wasn't overly happy with the service that they received, whether it was with a course that you sold or an online program that you have, or maybe it was even face-to-face work that you did. I want you to have a think about how you handled that situation and what came up for you in that moment, and really journal it out. I know it might be a bit raw and it might be a bit hard to look at, but I want you to have an experience of seeing the situation through the lens of the law of least effort. And I want you to revisit it and look at, in reflection, can I accept that moment was happening for me? Even though it caught me off guard and I was super stressed and anxious, can I look back and see that moment happened for me? Can I look back and see how I took responsibility for it and what the hidden lesson was? And can I look back and see how I was able to then integrate that lesson? Okay, so for me, I'm just trying to think of an example to share with you. Yeah, so when I first started introducing fees, and I had fees for my psychology service, I had cancellation fees and booking fees and all of this sort of stuff. As you know from previous episodes, it was a really difficult introduction because I did not know what I was doing. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor. My supervisor wasn't in private practice. They were attached to a university, so they didn't know. And I was just winging it, and I was jumping into Facebook groups, asking for help and all of this sort of stuff. And anyway, what ended up happening was, I got a lot of pushback, as you've heard before, and I was bullied by a couple of clients who, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was standing behind the counter at reception, and a male client was standing over me, and he was pointing his finger and he was banging his fist on the counter at me, saying he wasn't going to pay me this $15 and all of this sort of stuff. And He was very angry that I'd processed the payment, even though we'd had the discussion and he'd signed all his paperwork and he filled out the payment form with his credit card details and everything. When the payment actually came out after the session, he returned to the practice to, accost me or verbally attack me or whatever it was for taking out this payment. So anyway, if I accepted in that moment that this was happening, and I was right where I needed to be, I could have had a very different outcome. What ended up happening was I got scared, and when I'm anxious, my response is flight. I shut down, I run away, I'm the flight person. But anyway, I was trapped, right? I was trapped behind the counter. He was blocking the exit, so I couldn't escape. He was hollering and all this sort of stuff. Now, instead of me taking responsibility then and accepting that this moment was happening for me, I was like in my head in that fear state, rushing, all the blood coursing through me and everything. And I became defensive. And of course, all that did was blow things up even more. And anyway, I made some bad decisions. I ended up giving him his money back. Can you believe it? I mean, who refunds, counseling sessions? It's not a thing. No one does it, but I did it anyway because I didn't have this understanding. I didn't have this awareness. Looking back, let me share with you after I learned about things like the law of least effort. Had I accepted in that moment, had I been able to have the presence and the wherewithal to breathe for a moment, to put a boundary in place, and to accept, okay, I'm not going to struggle here. I'm going to let this moment unfold. I'm going to let him say what he needs to say. And I'm going to accept the universe is giving me this for a reason. Might not know what it is just yet, but okay, this is happening for me. And seeing then that this thing that was happening is happening to help me get better in my private practice when it comes to charging people for services. If I didn't become defensive, if I allowed myself to, release that need to prove and to be right, I was like, but you signed the thing and we've had the discussion and you've done this and you've done that. That was the energy that I was in because I was reacting. I didn't even think about it. But how would I handle it differently next time? Again, it's going to be boundaries, but it leads me to be able to integrate and transmute the lesson. And for me, what I didn't realize in the moment, but what I realized with debriefing after it all happened was the lesson that I had was to be more clear in my policies about, what the fee is, when the fee will be processed, how it will be processed. I needed to be more clear with my clients and not assume that because they filled out all of the forms that they'd read them and understood them properly. I needed to actually make sure. So I gave a direction to admin to, and I gave them a script about, making sure everybody understood this is the process so there aren't any surprises, and that if they, aren't happy with that, that's okay. We can connect them with psychologists in the area that offer bulk billing or something like that. So it allowed me to improve the way that I was doing my business as someone who is new to charging fees. And from that space and from that experience, now I am better at seeing lessons and I'm better at boundaries. So I can absolutely see, while it wasn't a pleasant experience, I can see now how having that experience has made me better at private practice. Now I have policies in place. I have terms and conditions in place. They're all very clear. I have contracts with people in place. So I protect my business, I protect myself, and I protect my clients because my clients need boundaries too. And, it may surprise you to know that even in our community, there are some people that I work with, counselors, social workers, and psychologists, that choose not to pay, or, they decide, I want to spend the money on something else, so I'm going to cancel my supervision or something like that. Even in the work that we do in our professional community, this happens. It's a thing. And by having had a lesson like this with a client years ago, now I feel no anxiety when somebody says to me, I want to cancel X, Y, or Z. For example, I can look at my terms and conditions. I can refer to my terms and conditions. I've got the boundary there, and I can say, well, that's okay. You don't have to continue with this service, but you are still responsible, for upholding your end of the agreement. And this is just how it is. And most of the time people are okay with that, but you're always going to get pushback from some people. But that's life. It's just disappointing that it happens in our field, but it does. And I think as your practice grows, it's just a numbers thing, isn't it? If you're working with only a handful of people, the chances of an unwanted situation or an anxiety-inducing situation in your practice are less than if you work with 1,000 people or 2,000 people, or in my case, 6,000 people. There's always going to be some people that, change or evolve, and we're not always on the same path. Some people are going to get on the bus, some people are going to get off the bus. That's totally fine, but we can get on and off it nicely. And for you in private practice, I want you to really make a conscious effort this week of tuning in to a situation that may happen for you in your business that causes you to, feel nervous or discomfort or something like that. And I want you to be intentional and say, I'm going to choose to believe that although I feel horrible in this moment, it's exactly unfolding for me in the way that it needs to be, for my highest good and for the highest good of all others. Number one, choose that belief. Number two, take responsibility, right? Taking responsibility is, how can I respond to this in a way, if you like, that's really creative? I just say creative because I think when we think outside the box, that's where all the gold is. But in business, if you've got a policy or a procedure, then you're going to lean into that. That's what your policies and procedures and your terms and conditions are there for, right? They protect you, they protect your client. So whatever it is that you're dealing with in your business, understand that there's a hidden lesson in here. You can't see it right now because you're in your head, and you're not going to be able to see it until you calm down a little bit. And that might take some time. That's okay. But drop the need to be defensive, okay? Catch yourself before you hit reply to the nasty email, before you hit reply to the nasty comment, before you respond to the person on the phone that's blowing off steam, give yourself time. Say to those people, I'll get back to you in 24 hours. I'll get back to you during office hours, or I'm busy today. I want to give this the time it deserves. Please give me 24 hours and I'll get back to you then, right? Give yourself that window. That's okay. You're allowed to have 24 hours. You don't have to respond straight away. And, allow yourself to think about, what is the lesson here? How was I responsible for this happening? Like me, when I first started charging fees, I was responsible for that client standing over me like that because I wasn't clear. I thought I was clear, but looking back now, I can see that I could have been more clear. So that was on me, and it helped my business to improve that. And the whole point of this episode is to show you that when you can follow this 3-step process and you get into the habit of following this 3-step process, it's going to become autopilot for you. It's going to become second nature for you. And you will be able to have an experience of doing less, exerting less effort, and receive more inquiries, referrals, turnover, opportunities, visibility, whatever it is you set your intention on. And again, it all comes back to you working in alignment. And when you're aligned because everything feels super easy. You are out of alignment, or something is out of alignment when you're feeling uncomfortable, when you're feeling like it's hard, when you're feeling like you've got to do something, push, use effort. That's when something's out of alignment. Tune into that, become aware of it, and ask yourself the question, what's not feeling right here? What's off for me here? What's not feeling good for me here? And when you have that awareness, ask yourself, okay, then what could I change, or what needs to change in order for it to feel good for me? Because when you're in that flow state, you're going to get more done in a lot less time, and that's going to give you back your time freedom. It's going to help you with your balance. It's going to help you feel more joy, feel light. It's going to help you sleep better at night. All of those beautiful, 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 beautiful things. So yes, in private practice, you absolutely get to do less and receive more if you're open to using the processes. Okay. And I've shared with you a 3-step process here. I hope that you loved this episode so much. This is something that we're going into more detail with in Clients on Demand. And I have to tell you, I am loving that program so much. Everyone worked on their messaging this week, and we did a few other things. And it's just such a beautiful place to be. I'm in that space every single day, giving them coaching on the spot, helping. And I'm so excited because their next module drops tomorrow, and it's on some mindset and spirituality stuff for their private practice. And it's just going to be so much fun. And I know that they're going to be some big shifts and some aha moments for them all. And I just can't wait to see their faces, and it's going to be so much fun. I love it so much. I want to know what you're doing in your private practice too. So feel free to let me know in our groups, or send me an email. You know, my details are always in the show notes. I hope you loved this episode. Thank you so much for listening. But enjoy doing less and receiving more in your private practice. Okay, bye everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast today. If you're looking for clarity, if you need help with branding, your processes, and bringing everything into alignment with your soul's purpose for your private practice, head to the show notes and click the link for more information about the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group. You are going to love it. I can't wait to see you in there. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.